Hello, welcome to this YouTube channel. My name is Marcel and I'm making this video to briefly share what got me interested in beekeeping. Okay, let's get started. So first of all, I'm located here in beautiful Nova Scotia, Canada. That is the Atlantic part of Canada. And I'm here in the southwestern area of the province of Nova Scotia, not too far from the Bay of Fundy. And I'm here in Grow Zone 6B, which basically just means that we have 4 seasons here. And the winters here are not as cold as in other parts of Canada. And we have a nice warm summer. And it's now the beginning of June, which basically means that the weather is now at a point where the bees come out to do what they do for the season. So as you can see from the title of the video, there are a few elements that connect with each other that got me interested in beekeeping. I just want to briefly talk about each of them. So the first one is biodynamic farming and the information or knowledge shared by Dr. Rudolf Steiner. I want to read you something briefly to start this off because it summarizes it better than I can. What I'm reading here is from a book called 9 Lectures on Bees, written by Dr. Steiner. Or actually what this is it's a transcription of information Dr. Steiner shared in 1923 at the Goetheanum in Switzerland, so over 100 years ago. Throughout that year, 1923, he gave 9 separate lectures on bees, and those were transcribed and then eventually put together in this book format, which is one of the foundations of what got me interested in beekeeping. So at the back of this book here, you can see here Dr. Steiner right there. I'm going to read you real quick what it says here. Rudolf Joseph Lorenz Steiner was an Austrian philosopher, social reformer, architect, and esotericist. Steiner gained initial recognition at the end of the 19th century as a literary critic and published philosophical works including, quote, The Philosophy of Freedom. At the beginning of the 20th century, he founded a spiritual movement called Anthroposophy with roots in German idealist philosophy and theosophy. Other influences include Goethean science and Rosicrucianism. So if that resonates with you, you may want to research more about Rudolf Steiner yourself. There's plenty of information about him online. What I can say briefly is that he shared a vast array of knowledge with humanity at the time he was alive. And agriculture was one of those things that he shared, which is the foundation of today's biodynamic farming. And I didn't know at the time when I moved here to Nova Scotia that Rudolf Steiner actually was foundational to biodynamic farming. I learned about all that after I made contact with a local biodynamic farm that happens to be here. It's one of the very few that operate in Canada. The farm is called Bear River Farms. It's run by a lovely German couple, Thilo and Saskia. I'm going to put their video channel link in the description here for anyone who's interested. And as you can maybe tell from my accent, I'm originally also German. I've been living in Canada for over 10 years. But I connected with the biodynamic farm and basically saw that this type of farming seems to be very good. I'm obviously not an expert on it whatsoever, but I can attest as a consumer of the farming products that it's great. It seems to be a very healthy way to maintain agriculture and do so sustainably. Actually, I also want to read about what biodynamic farming is a little bit from the book here, because it does mention it. So in the third phase of his work, beginning after World War I, Steiner worked to establish various practical endeavors, including Waldorf education, biodynamic agriculture, and anthroposophical medicine. In 1924, a group of farmers concerned about the future of agriculture requested Steiner's help. Steiner responded with a lecture series on an ecological and sustainable approach to agriculture that increased soil fertility without the use of chemical fertilizers and pesticides. A central aspect of biodynamic agriculture is that the farm as a whole is seen as an organism and therefore should be a largely self-sustaining system, producing its own manure and animal feed. If you have any chance to visit or be acquainted with a biodynamic farm, I highly recommend it. It really seems like a sustainable way to do agriculture, and we're very appreciative of being able to access the farm products here so close to us. And when I learned gradually about what biodynamic farming is all about, I noticed that Rudolf Steiner, Dr. Steiner, also shared information about beekeeping, which is then again based on this book here, 9 Lectures on Bees. So I bought this book, I read the book several times, and slowly became even more interested, because the way Dr. Steiner describes the importance of bees and what they mean in the overall context of nature and our civilization, it's a different perspective than what you normally get from most sort of mainstream sources, if you want to call it that. Dr. Steiner focuses really mostly on the unseen forces that affect things. What you can see on my channel here, the first video that's uploaded is actually an audiobook of this 9 Lectures on Bees book. And what I did, I recorded that myself because I like listening to audiobooks. And this book here about the bees, it's only 69 pages long. But the audiobook that I recorded is 5.5 hours long, because the book contains so much information that requires several readings, or in this case listenings, to understand. So it's like each time you read the book, you take away a little nugget of information, and it feels like that reading or listening to this book is really almost like a lifelong process, and it's not just something you read once or twice and then put it down. You kind of go back to it every once in a while. So I recorded that so I can listen to it myself whenever I want to, and take nuggets of information out of it. And once I understood a little bit more about Dr. Steiner's perspective on bees, the next logical step was to identify, what different methods of keeping bees are out there, and what kind of method seems to be the best, that also kind of fits the profile of biodynamic farming, in the sense of no use of any chemicals and keeping bees in a natural way so that the bees are healthy and happy. And that's when I stumbled on the website called horizontalhive.com, which was created by Dr. Leo Sharashkin. And the website is great. I can highly recommend it. There's a lot of information on it. And Dr. Sharashkin, on his website, makes available different kinds of products, including books, which I ended up buying. And the first of these books is basically this one here. It's called Keeping Bees in Horizontal Hives, which was written by Georges de Layens. This was written in 1897. So again, over 100 years ago. Georges de Layens was a French biologist and beekeeper. And he basically came up with this hive, which is now called a Layens hive after him. And it's just one of the different types of hives that are out there. And what I liked about it is that it talks about the hive being, if you can see it on the photo here, the hive is stationary, which means you don't move it. You build it once and it can stay in its position for as long as it functions, I guess. And I like that. I read about how a lot of beekeepers give up beekeeping at some point later in their lives, because some of the other hives that are out there, you have to lift them or lift components of them, and they can be quite heavy sometimes, putting a strain on your back. And one of the goals for me was that I approach beekeeping with the idea of it being a lifelong learning process. And I want to make sure that I can continue to do this for as long as I live, basically. And I thought that this kind of hive fits that. And also, what I liked about it is that the hive itself is built with lumber that is thicker than most other hives. The walls are about 1.5 inches thick, which is not obviously the same thickness as the hollow of a tree where bees naturally live in the forest, but it's as close to that in the sense that it's thick enough to withstand really cold winters and keep the temperature sort of steady during the hot summer months and also during the cold winter months. So that appealed to me. And this book here, Keeping Bees in Horizontal Hives, was the next progression after discovering Rudolf Steiner and the biodynamic farming. Yeah, I mentioned horizontalhive.com, Dr. Sharashkin, who kindly puts plans on his website that anyone can access for free, which explain in detail how to actually build a horizontal hive. So I really appreciate that. Thank you very much for sharing that, Dr. Sharashkin. That's also why I'm making this video here and created the channel, because I feel like I should document my journey to pay forward some of the things that I may learn and that may help someone else to in their journey, if they get interested in like applying this kind of hive or learning about beekeeping in general. And once again, I have no knowledge about beekeeping. I never had bees. As of this moment, I don't have any bees yet. I built a few hives, which I'll explain later in the video. And my goal is to basically integrate some bees this summer into one of the hives or two. We'll see how it goes. And then to start learning on how the whole thing works and share my journey, basically. But lastly, I want to mention this book here. There's a third book, which is called Keeping Bees with a Smile, which was originally written by Fedor Lazutin. So this book is essential, and as the title suggests, it focuses on the principles and practice of natural beekeeping. The edition you can buy on horizontalhive.com is a revised and expanded second edition. It was edited by Dr. Leo, and it builds on the original knowledge shared by Georges de Layens. And it's basically the most current, up-to-date source of information on how to build and manage the Layens hives. Okay, with that, let's move on and look at the actual Layens hives I ended up building. And for this part of the video, I'm re-recording the audio separately from the video because at the time I recorded the video a few weeks ago at the end of May, the built-in microphone and the camera captured too much noise from wind. So I'm basically improvising the audio part for the video you're looking at here. So I started building my first Layens hive last year in 2024. I've built 5 hives altogether. 3 of them are 25 frame, like this one here you're looking at. It's about 42 inches long. And the other 2 are 20 frame hives. They're about 36 inches long. And I had to start somewhere and chose those sizes just based on my research. I wouldn't necessarily recommend building a 25 frame hive because it's very heavy to move and put into position by yourself. If you have help from another person, then that's different. But there's also other considerations to make, which I'll get to in a separate video, which I've learned since I made the decision to build the sizes I ended up building. But yeah, this hive here, the 25 frame one, along with all the other models, they were built using the exact instructions listed on horizontalhive.com. It took me a while to put them together because I had never done it, and I enjoy the process of woodworking, so I took my time to, to build them over the course of basically, a year and a half sort of. And I used locally milled hemlock lumber from a local sawmill here nearby. And like I said earlier in the video, the walls of these hives are 1.5 inches thick. And as you can see there, I used on the sides, I used a crack jig method to combine the thick boards that lay on top of each other. There's a different method to do that, which is using a dado blade, which I tried to do, but it didn't work for me because the length of the boards resulted in the dado cut not coming out straight enough to overlay the boards. So I selected the crack jig method, which worked well, and then just filled the crack jig holes with these pre-made crack jig dowels. And as you can see here, there are 7 standard frames in this part of the hive. And the board next to it is a division board, which basically just separates the section with the frames so that you don't have bees basically all over the hive at that point. From what I understand, you want to gradually increase the size of the frames as the bee colony grows, and gradually basically add more frames. So here I'm showing you one of the standard Layens frames. Again, the dimensions are listed on horizontalhive.com. I followed the instructions exact, and each frame contains a wax foundation that I ordered also from horizontalhive.com. It actually comes from a region in Spain, a mountainous region in Spain, where there are no pollutants and the wax foundation is purely organic and therefore very healthy. It's not cheap. That's why I'm using portions of these sheets to start the foundation, and as bees move into the hive, they use the foundation to then build comb downwards. But you can also use full sheets to cover the entire frame. And each frame is using a wire there. You can see there's 4 lines of wire that the wax foundation is sort of melted into, and that basically holds the wax foundation in the frame. The frames also were built using the same hemlock lumber, and when you use freshly milled lumber, you have to account for shrinkage because the wood has to dry. So bear that in mind. If you can get kiln-dried lumber to build these, it's advantageous because you won't see any shifting. Here I'm looking at the bottom part of the frames. So what I decided to do, I decided to bring them off the ground by about 2.5 feet. And I'm using standard 4-inch deck blocks. You can buy it like Home Depot or Home Hardware here in Canada. And then I used milled logs to build the foundation for the actual frame. And the bottom part of the foundation for the frames was finished with natural linseed oil, just to protect the wood from wear and tear over time and try to avoid using chemicals. I did use regular oil-based paint for the outdoor parts of the hives. That's what I had available. I think there's better ways to use natural paint, but I decided to go with that because the inside of the hives is all natural wood. It's basically just that outer section that is protected by traditional paint, basically. And you can see that there is a landing board attached to the front of the hive. I read that that's a good idea for the bees to use, so I decided to install it. It's an easy part. What I also decided to do was to add these bars on the left and right side of the hive that allow me to basically open up the lid or the roof of the hive without having to remove the whole thing. Because the hive is very big, having to remove the entire lid or roof would be an extra step I wanted to avoid. So I basically just used hinges to attach the roof part to the box part of the hive, and then added the bars to allow me to keep the roof open if whenever I access the hive to have to remove frames or inspect the hive and things like that. So I thought that was a helpful step to just keep everything again as simple as possible, and bear in mind the longevity of having to work with these hives. Looking at that here, you can see that I used just regular traditional metal roofing for the roof part. I found that is an essential part for where I am here in Nova Scotia because of the amount of precipitation and snow we have. I felt that the recommendation of using just like an aluminum sheet for the roof wasn't sufficient long term, and so I basically used metal roofing with a drip edge around, as well as a Tyvek underlayment actually underneath the metal, to make sure that there is zero moisture coming in through the roof into the hive. And here I'm showing you that the metal itself overlays the drip edge by about 1.25 inches, maybe 1.5 inches even. And I did that so that the water would drip so as to avoid coming near the entrance of the hive, right? Because I read that moisture is one of the worst things to happen in a hive. You want to avoid that so that mold doesn't build up. So keeping the hive dry at all times was a crucial part of building these hives here. And you see the back of the hive now. And what I can say here is that the front of the hive faces southeast, which means the bees get to enjoy the more gentle morning sun and avoid the sort of brunt of the afternoon sun, and the area is shaded enough for the hives to not be fully exposed to the peak of the sun. That was the reason behind positioning them there. Okay, so let's take a look here now at the very first horizontal hive I built in 2024. And what I want to mention here is the main differences between this model and the one I just showed you are three things. Number one, I used actual logs from the forest to build the legs. So you see those are round logs that are basically just shaved into square bottom parts to fit into the deck blocks. I can say that using milled square logs is definitely better because you get a tighter fit into the square fitting of the deck block. So I would recommend using square logs for that. And also the dimensions of logs from the forest are not uniform, so you kind of eyeball each log, and it just doesn't give you the stability that a properly milled square log gives you. And the other part you see here is that the hive itself is a dark green, which I wouldn't recommend. I read afterwards that ideally you're supposed to use lighter colors for the hives because the darker colors attract heat, and you want to try to avoid attracting heat as much as possible. The top of the hive here, the roof part, was built using just sheet aluminum. I didn't really do it properly, even though the entire roof is fully covered in aluminum, but I still had water leaking through there. And I built this in 2024, didn't have any bees in it last year, and then over the winter I noticed that water came in and that the aluminum itself deteriorated very quickly here in the Nova Scotian winter. So I don't think that material is adequate for Nova Scotia longevity wise, and that's why I opted for the actual metal roof, because that's going to last. So those are the main differences there. I'm going to eventually take this hive apart and replace the roof, repaint it, and attach the square logs to it. Okay, well, that's basically it for now with looking at the hives I built. There's a lot more detail I could go into, but I'll try to cover that in separate videos. For now, let's move on to the last phase that took place about a week ago, whereby I actually ended up getting some bees and moved them into the first hive. So let's look at that. Okay, I'm going to keep the last part about the bees moving in fairly short. I'll cover it in more detail in separate videos. But earlier this year, I ordered what's called a local package of locally bred bees from a reputable bee supply store near Halifax. And early June, I was called that they were ready for pickup. And here's what that looked like. It's basically a box of live bees, about 3 pounds of them, which include a queen. And they come in this pre-made box that is fully secure, so you transport that in your car. And on top of it there, you see what's called a candy plug, which is used to hold the queen in for a couple days or so, and the bees chew through it to slowly release her into the colony. And here you can see me basically installing the actual package, which you basically just shake in all the bees into the hive. That's basically as simple as that. You attach the queen to a frame and then shake in the rest of the bees, and then give them some time to settle in. So here we are, about a week after I got the package bees and installed them in one of the hives, in the first hive. And as you can see, the bees are alive and well and very active. I have not done an actual inspection of the hive. I want to give them a couple more days to just really settle in. When I got the bees here, the day of me picking up the package, it was a bit of a cooler day and it was rainy. So I figured they probably need a bit of extra time to really settle in and become comfortable. Some of the bees died. I think that's to be expected when you manage or work with that amount of bees in a box. But it looks like they are doing well. I have, again, not inspected the hive yet. I assume that the queen was slowly released and is doing well. When I recorded the installing of the package, I was more focused on the bees themselves because I had never done that, so I didn't record it with a lot of detail, but I shared what I could. And for me, all of this is new too, because I'm now just observing the bees and wanting to make sure that they do well. I've noticed they've really taken on to the local hawthorn trees, which were blossoming last week, so just at the right time when the bees came here. And as you can see on the left-hand side of the hive here, I did install a sugar water feeder for them. And of course, the idea of the type of beekeeping I'm looking to do here is to not feed any sugar water to the bees at all. But because this was a brand new group of bees that was transported here and given a brand new home in a brand new area, I spoke to the beekeeping supply store and they said that I must feed them something so that they basically make it through the initial phase of adjusting, and I think that makes sense. So this is where now the real practical hands-on learning experience starts for me, and I'm going to document as I can throughout the summer how the whole process works out. There's a lot more to be said about the hives themselves, the bees themselves. I haven't even touched on the whole part of attracting local wild bees with swarm traps. That's a whole separate topic which went beyond what I wanted to cover in today's video. The most important part for me was to finish the horizontal hives this year for this summer and to basically get started with some bees and learn as I go. And that's where I'm at now, and everything else is to be continued. So stay tuned and we'll see what's next. Thanks for watching.